but really and truly, to be well-rounded and to be relevant in our ministries, we have to know what's happening. So, I welcome all of us, and I know we're going to have a wonderful time, and I look forward to that. I ask that you be attentive, and when the opportunity arises, let's share. Let's give our opinions. Who knows? We may be correct, we may not be, but a lot of things are possible. Amen? We're going to start officially. I invite you to stand. We're happy to have Brother Woodley here with us this evening. I'm going to give him the microphone and have him lead us in the opening prayer at this time.
Let us pray. Let us pray. Father, we thank you again for this afternoon. We thank you, Lord, for this opportunity that we can come, oh God, together and learn more about ourselves and what it pertains to us. We ask, oh God, that everything that be said and done be done to your honor and to your glory. And help us, Lord, as Caribbean people, Lord, to come together with one voice and in unity, knowing, Lord, that whatever we do as a people, we do it together. We ask for your guidance, we ask for your blessings, we ask, Lord, that you'll give the speaker clarity of voice and that you'll give him clarity of thought as he speaks to us this afternoon. These things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you. Take your seats, church. Before I introduce our speaker, I didn't check with him to see whether he'd prefer to stand or to sit. I could bring a table. You can stand. Okay, great. So, without much more ado, I want to welcome us all. I want to welcome us all, but particularly our facilitator, our guest speaker, our very own, let's begin at the beginning, our very own community man, Brother Lesroy Williams. Show some love for homegrown talent. Homegrown talent. Sometimes to get a speaker, you have to go overseas. We just have to go a few houses. And he's familiar with our congregation. We're familiar with him. He is a graduate from the University of the West Indies, both Mona and Cave Hill. In fact, there's so many things that we can say about Lesroy because we know him in numerous capacities. But in this context, he has held several jobs. He has been the senior writer for the St. Kitts Nevis Observer, a very respected newspaper and one of the few surviving ones. He's a journalist reporter for several media establishments, for example, SKN Vibes and even myview.com. Mr. Williams lectured full-time for some 6 years at our local college, Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, in the Faculty of Arts, Science, General Studies, and also the Faculty of Technical and Vocational Education and Management Studies, TVEMS. He taught 8 courses, not just one. Many lecturers are confined to 1 or 2 specialities. 8 courses, including Communication Studies, Caribbean Studies, Ethics, hear this, Citizenship, Caribbean Politics and Society, English, Communication, and Critical Thinking. Very apt, very appropriate for our presentation today. He served for 6 years as the Assistant Examiner for CXC in Caribbean Studies. And it is on this very extensive wealth of knowledge and familiarity that we know that we will have a great discourse, and we've asked him to lead the discussion in the topic of looking at Caribbean integration. We've asked him to look at it historical perspective, because in truth and in fact, there was something they called the Federation way back. And since then up until now, we have been talking about one Caribbean. Calypsonians have sung about it. You may be a lover of soul, so you probably don't know these songs. But there have been songs about uniting. Say, Grenada have this, St. Kitts have that. Why don't we unite? Where are we now? What is the prospects of coming together? Is the net effect good or bad? And strange enough, is there any implications for us as Christians? All these are things which are good to look into and good to know. And we have taxed his brain and asked, and he has kindly consented to be with us. Church, I look forward to a fruitful engagement, and I ask you to be a part of it, and let us see how best we can know who we are and what to expect here while we're here until Christ comes. Join me in welcoming Lesroy Williams at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. James, and good evening to all of you who have come to share. And it's a discussion, as Mr. James has said, where we will be looking at the Caribbean community. What's the name of the Caribbean community? CARICOM. And we hear that word over and over again, CARICOM. And sometimes when we speak about CARICOM, we speak about CARICOM as though it is something out there. CARICOM, we can speak about it as a what, and we can speak about it as a who. A what in the sense that it is an integration movement. CARICOM is an integration movement. And when we speak about it as the who, we are CARICOM. CARICOM is us. What that means is that CARICOM is about the people of the Caribbean community. And one of the things that we know about the people of the Caribbean community is that we are talented, we are educated, we are diverse. Oh, the mic was not on. Oh, sorry, the mic was not on. We are diverse as a Caribbean people. The Caribbean is a melting pot of many cultures, peoples, religions, languages. It is diverse because of our history. But CARICOM was established in 1973. So it's just a little over what we can say 50 years. 50 years. And it was established in Trinidad at what we call the Treaty of Chaguaramas. Chaguaramas, just over 50 years ago. And it has 15 member states. There are 15 member states comprising Antigua and Barbuda, the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, Barbados, Belize, the Commonwealth of Dominica, Grenada, the Republic of Guyana, the Republic of Haiti, Jamaica, Montserrat, the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, we are a part of it, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the Republic of Suriname, and the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. So, all of those countries in the Caribbean are members of CARICOM, working together for the betterment of our Caribbean community. And as I said before, the community is diverse. Diverse in terms of its languages, its culture, its religion, all of that. And we are separated by water. That makes it even more difficult, in a sense, to come together. I can't drive from here to Antigua. I can't drive from here to Trinidad and Tobago. And so we know we either have to get a boat or we have to get a plane. And that has been one of the challenges of the regional integration movement, that of transportation. Getting from one country in CARICOM to the next. And we all know about it. We speak about Liat and we know what has happened to Liat, and we talk about Leave Island anytime and all kinds of things. So transportation would help us with our regional integration. Now, 13 of these CARICOM countries are English-speaking. 13 of them, but not all of them are. Suriname, they speak Dutch, so it is Dutch-speaking, and Haiti is French-speaking. And we have seen all the problems in Haiti, the political unrest, the violence, the gangs, and all of that in Haiti. And Haiti is a part of CARICOM. So it simply means that Haiti is also our concern. Haiti is our concern. It is the concern of our Caribbean community. So we see them as our brothers and sisters within the community. And sometimes our attitudes towards them is like they are not our brothers and sisters within CARICOM, but they are. Haiti, of course, is extremely populated. It's one of the bigger countries. Well, it's the biggest country in CARICOM, really. It's bigger than Jamaica. And its population is huge. I think there are about 11 million people in Haiti. Haiti can take in the population of almost all of the other, if not all of the other CARICOM countries, how big it is. And then we have other members that are not full members of the CARICOM. We have Anguilla. We have Bermuda. We have the British Virgin Islands, the Cayman Islands, and the Turks and Caicos Islands. They are what we call associate members. So they too are members of the community, and they are associate members. And all of the countries are relatively small. St. Kitts is just a drop. Sometimes you look at a big map and you don't even see it. It's like a dot. It's like a dot on the map. In terms of population size, but there is great diversity, not only in population and size, but also with regard to the levels of economic and social development. And all CARICOM countries or states are considered to be developing countries. Developing. Of course, we know once ago we used to hear third world countries and all this kind of a thing, language that is not really acceptable today. What is third world about us? So to use the terminology, developing is better terminology to use. So we have developed countries and developing countries. And you know what? I'll tell you something. Those countries that we consider developed, it is we in the Caribbean who developed them. We developed them at the expense of ourselves, because it is on the backs of slaves who were never paid that they took our resources, the sugar and other things, and developed themselves while we remained underdeveloped. In fact, there is a book that is written by a Guyanese historian who was assassinated, Walter Rodney. How Europe underdeveloped Africa. How Europe underdeveloped Africa. And there is this talk about reparations and them paying us back, and it's part of the talk of CARICOM as well. They have this 10-point plan for how these countries should pay us back, reparations to repair the damage that was done. I don't think that that damage can ever fully be repaired. It is irreparable. Irreparable. Because money alone won't do it. You have to think in terms of the damage that was done in other ways that are not monetary. The psychological damage, leaving us with complexes and all of that. How do you repair all of that? But anyway, an integral part of the Caribbean community lives beyond the geographical boundaries of the community. We call it the Caribbean diaspora. The Caribbean diaspora. So the point I'm trying to make is that Caribbean people have always been on the move. Movement free movement. We are a migratory people. And it is one of the striking features of our Caribbean people that we have always moved, continuous movement of our people. For different reasons, people move in search of greener pastures. And so we have people living in London and New York and Toronto and other places. And they are our people as well, and part of our community. All of us can think about friends and family that we have living out there in that community. But we've also had internal migration in the Caribbean community itself. So not just outside of the community, but we've had migration within the community. And we see it here in St. Kitts. We have people living here from the Dominican Republic. The Dominican Republic, they are not a part of CARICOM. But we know what happened. Still Caribbean people moving and going to other places to work and so on, trying to better themselves. People left from here and went to Santo Domingo to work in the sugarcane industry. They went to a place called San Pedro de Macorís, and in Consuelo, a lot of them, there was a sugar factory there, and they went there to work, people from St. Kitts and Nevis, and they went in search of greener pastures, and guess what happened? You just don't go to work, you know. Other work is done. And so they form relationships, they get children, families are made, and so on. And so some of what you're seeing today is those very same people returning to us. They have roots in St. Kitts and Nevis. If you look at some of the surnames, they are English surnames. But they were born in the Dominican Republic. Things are not so good in some places where they come from economically. And so they too have come and are in search of greener pastures. So you see the movement? Sometimes we don't like it. And sometimes we feel as though they are disturbing us. They are loud. And they play their music until loud into the wee hours of the night and into the morning. And they're disturbing us. And they're speaking a different language, which is Spanish, that most of us can't understand. And that upsets us when they're around us and they're speaking their language. You realize where I'm going with this? They are impacting St. Kitts and Nevis. They are impacting our Caribbean community. We will develop these points. And sometimes people say, oh, they're playing smart. They could well talk English. But because they don't want us to understand what they're saying, they're speaking their Spanish, they're chatting us. They're chatting us behind my back and saying all kinds of things about us. So we are a bit uncomfortable. We are a bit uncomfortable. Sometimes not all that welcoming, because there is a barrier. And the barrier has to do with the language and their culture. But the reality is, we no longer live in a monoculture, a monocultural society, where there is just one culture. The world has become that it is a polyculture, a mixture, a blend of many cultures. And it is something that we have to learn to live with. Some people, we may think it makes us richer. Some people think it makes us poorer. And these are some of the things that we will have to contend with the free movement of people within our community. Is it enriching us, or is it impoverishing us? Is the question. Diversity. We've all passed through slavery, indentureship, and political and economic hardships. But we are a people on the move. The people in the diaspora, in many ways, we say that we use a word, the brain drain. You ever hear that term? They're out there. And it's a brain drain because they think that the brain, instead of using their talents and their intellect and so on, by being here, they are out there. And it's a brain drain. But it's not necessarily always a brain drain, because these people contribute financially to our development through, for example, remittances. Why you think you have Western Union here? And you have MoneyGram. And I see another one pop up called RIA. And that is where I see a lot of the Spanish people go. Well, let me be correct in my terminology. Let me not say Spanish. We call them Spanish. But really, Spanish is what they speak. That is their language, but they're not Spanish. Spanish people are people from Spain, okay? Spanish people are people from Spain. They are Dominicans, or if you want to call them Hispanics. They're from Hispaniola. Because Haitians are also Hispanics. They're from Hispaniola. You know, Hispaniola is separated, it's two countries, Haiti and the Dominican Republic. The Dominican Republic on one side and Haiti on the other side. Hispaniola. So they're really Hispanics. Both Haitians and Dominicans are Hispanics, but they are not Spanish. We say they are Spanish because we're referring to their language. Right? But their nationality, they are not Spanish. They are Dominicans or they are Haitians. I mean Haitians, Dominicans, that is their nationality. And the people in the diaspora donate to our charitable organizations. They make investments. So not because they are out there, they're still contributing. And they still do not forget their identity, that they are a Caribbean people. And they too, I am sure, they meet all kinds of things out there. People on the move again. And some people are uncomfortable with them being out there. I mean, they're small, the population is small, in populations where you have millions of people. But nonetheless, they can make an impact. And so they make an impact in terms of the culture, the Caribbean culture. You all ever heard about the Notting Hill Carnival in England? That is one of the ways in which our Caribbean people are making some impact in terms of the Caribbean culture being in England. You ever heard about Caribana? That's in Canada, in Toronto. You ever heard about Labor Day in Brooklyn? Caribbean people saying that, look, we are here and we are bringing our culture, our Caribbean culture to you. And they take the food and all of these kinds of things. You have Jamaican restaurants here and there in Leeds and so on. They haven't forgotten where they have come from. They are a part of the Caribbean community. It's just that they are living in North America or Europe, and they play an important role in advocacy on behalf of their adopted homelands. So they represent, our diaspora represents an important resource both in intellectual ability and other skills on which we must draw for further development. And we see it here in St. Kitts and Nevis. I think they have a unit, regional integration and diaspora unit. And from time to time, you see the government, ministers and so on, go abroad to interact with Kittitians and Nevisians living in the diaspora. But so far, what I am trying to establish is that our Caribbean people have always been a people on the move. Today we are here to discuss the CSME and free movement. Free movement in the community. But that has already been happening. It has already been happening. How many Jamaicans you know who are here? People from Grenada. People from St. Vincent. People from St. Lucia. Look at our central bank. It's made up of all kinds of people within the Caribbean community working here. Look at our police force. It's made up of people from within the Caribbean community working here. So that has been happening. It is nothing new. It is nothing new. That has been happening already. And the whole idea of us coming together as a Caribbean community has posed challenges from the very beginning. We have great desire to be one, to be one. Because the truth of the matter is that when we speak about CARICOM, we are not just speaking about islands in the sea, in the Caribbean basin. Well, some of them not even in the Caribbean basin, because Suriname is not in the Caribbean basin. Barbados is not in the Caribbean Sea either. So by geography, if we have to look at the Caribbean community only in terms of geography, we are going to run into some problems. The Caribbean cannot be defined only in terms of its geography. So what do we look to? We have to look to other factors that define us. And some of the factors that define us are our history, the common history that we share, which I mentioned before, that of slavery and indentureship, colonization, and so on. Because Guyana is a part of the CARICOM community. But Guyana is not in the Caribbean geographically. Guyana is in where? South America. We have a lot of Guyanese here too. But Guyana is the only English-speaking country in South America. But what makes them Caribbean, even though they are located in South America and not in the Caribbean basin? It is the common history. Slavery, indentureship. But let us go back to our struggles to be one people. From the very beginning, we are trying to unite. Some people have sometimes you hear very negative things about CARICOM. Oh, CARICOM is a waste of time. CARICOM don't work. It carry, but it don't come. And all kinds of things. But CARICOM is important. It is important that as a people, we unite. We are diverse, as I mentioned before. Different languages, different cultures, but more similarities. There are more similarities that we have than differences. Now, there was something in the beginning called the West Indies Federation. 1958. It didn't last for long, to 1962. But it was established in 1958 as part of the regional integration movement. It was comprised of, Bradshaw was the Right Excellent and Right Honorable Sir Llewellyn Bradshaw at that time was a part of this federation. It comprised of 10 territories: Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Dominica, Grenada, Jamaica, Montserrat, the then St. Kitts, Nevis, and Anguilla, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and Trinidad and Tobago. But it broke apart. And the decisive development which led to the demise of the Federation was the withdrawal of Jamaica. Jamaica was the largest island in that membership. And after conducting a referendum, which was in 1961, that was the referendum on its continued partnership or participation in the arrangement. Jamaica decided, we don't want to be a part of this thing no more. We don't want to be a part of this thing no more. And you know, it was one of the bigger countries, and up to this day, they have this kind of thing about small island and big island. And now what you are seeing is that those countries from the big island are now running to the small island. These are some of the realities we have to deal with. And Eric Williams, Trinidad was the second biggest in terms of the membership in the West Indies Federation. Eric Williams, a scholar, from from slavery to capitalism and all of history book, historian, he said, Dr. Eric Williams, he said, 10 of us and Jamaica pulling out, and 1 from 10 leave north. Everything mash up. Everything mash up. And as early as that, 58, way before we had come, the attempts at regional integration. And after the collapse, it did not stop, because there was still this desire in the hearts of our Caribbean leaders to form something, to continue the movement, the regional integration movement. And so new efforts were made on the part of several political leaders to create a federation among the smaller islands. This was in 1962. The smaller islands. They were known as the Little Eight. The Little Eight. So you had Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Dominica, Grenada, Montserrat, St. Kitts Nevis, Anguilla, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This again failed because of differences that they had. And it was abandoned in 1965. It failed to materialize and was abandoned. But again, they carried on. And they wanted still to continue with the regional integration movement. It still did not die. It did not die. And out of that, at Dickinson Bay in Antigua in 1965, December of 1965, came what we call CARIFTA. CARIFTA. Caribbean Free Trade Agreement, to establish a free trade agreement among the islands. All the others did too. At one time they had certain what you call it? We were calling ships or ferries, to transport people and goods and so on. I think it's the Federal Maple and the Federal Palm and so on. We don't really have any sort of a ferry service really between the islands, in CARICOM. We have ferry service between St. Kitts and Nevis. Now we have a ferry service that it takes people down to St. Martin and to Statia and so on. Or you may have a ferry service between Trinidad and Tobago and so on. But in terms of a CARICOM ferry service, there is not one. Transportation has plagued the Caribbean community. And transportation plays an important role in terms of regional integration. If we are going to talk about movement, regional movement, and strengthening the regional integration movement, then transportation has to be key. We can't swim. Can I swim from here to Trinidad? Anybody can do it? Put up the hand. So, CARIFTA was established as a free trade area for interregional trade. And then, we had the establishment of the OECS, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, and that was established right here. Where? Where was it established? Right here in Bastille. That's why it's called, it was established by the Treaty of Bastille. It was signed in June 18th, 1981. Who signed it for us here? Who? Dr. Simmons. Okay? And then you had the revised Treaty of Bastille. When was that? When was that signed? It's not too long ago. When was it signed? In 2010. You had the revised Treaty of Bastille. 11 member grouping, the OECS. Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, Montserrat, Grenada, Dominica, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They are the members of the OECS. And then you had associate members, the British Virgin Islands, Anguilla, Martinique, and Guadeloupe, which are French, and departments of France. That 2010 revised Treaty of Bastille is extremely significant because within the OECS single space, we have achieved what CARICOM up to this point has not achieved. And so in the OECS, we have the full benefits of economic union. You can go from here and go to Antigua to live. You don't need no work permit. You can just go. You can go to St. Lucia. You can use your driver's license that you have here and go there and drive. So within the OECS, there is already free movement, unrestricted movement within the OECS. Once you are an OECS citizen, you can go to any one of the OECS countries and live. You don't have to apply for residency and all of that. And work. Did you know that? Did you know that? We didn't know that. Mr. Snideman, you knew that, right? Mr. Snideman knew that. So within the OECS, there is already an example of what the larger regional integration movement is trying to achieve. So free movement is already happening of people and goods. It is already happening. So the people that you see here from St. Vincent, they don't need a work permit. The people from Antigua They don't need a work permit. The people from St. Lucia, they don't need a work permit. And they have the rights to live here. They have the rights to live right here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And you can't do them nothing. You can't do them anything. So it's happening already. Now, there is something called the CSME, Caribbean Single Market and Economy. But before I get to that, one of the important things in terms of, are at the core of regional development efforts is to the need to develop and use our resources, both human and natural. The most important resource that we have in the Caribbean community, in CARICOM, is our human resource. We don't have a lot of natural resources, like some countries. I mean, in Guyana, you have gold. Guyana has minerals. They have their forestry. They have bauxite. We don't have any bauxite here. Trinidad has oil. And you know, oil means money. We don't have any oil here. They said they discover oil in the Essequibo in Guyana. And Venezuela also has an interest, because Venezuela is going back and saying, well, look, we lay claim to this territory of the Essequibo, and there's an ongoing dispute between Venezuela and Guyana, but it is over oil. If they didn't find any oil, I don't think, even if there was a small dispute, that it would have been magnified like that. Because who doesn't want to have oil? I am sure you'll be glad if you find oil in your backyard tomorrow. Oil means money, an important resource. And some of the countries within CARICOM have more natural resources than others. That is the point I'm trying to make. Here in St. Kitts and Nevis, what natural resource we have? Let me hear you. What is our natural resource here? The citizenship by investment? Is that a natural resource? Huh? That is not a natural resource, you know. It is a resource, but it's not a natural resource. It can be depleted. What natural resource we have? Huh? Our culture? Good size? Oh, okay. We have good soil, Layamigua, fertile soil. Do you think, since it's our natural resource, that we are making the best of it? Because if we have good soil means that we produce agriculture. Mr. James, you've been there. It means that we will use our fertile soil to produce an abundance of fruits and vegetables and all of that, not just for subsistence, not just for the local market, but so that we can even export. What do we export? Do we export our fruits and vegetables? We don't export fruit and vegetables here, but we import in abundance. We import in abundance. The Dominica boat comes. So it is not enough to have natural resources. But how we use our natural resources are important. We welcome Mr. Larry Vaughan, our ambassador to CARICOM. So, at the core of our regional development effort is the need to develop and use our resources, both human and natural, effectively and sustainably. Sustainable development. Of these, there can be no doubt that our human resources are more critical in determining the success of our attempts to build a better life in the region. Our human resource is our most important resource. Earlier, we spoke about some of our human resource being in the Caribbean diaspora and what some refer to as a brain drain. But we said nonetheless that the people in the diaspora are important to our development in the Caribbean community because they can contribute to remittances, investments, donations to our charitable and other organizations. They play an important advocacy role on our behalf in their adopted homelands. And so our diaspora, therefore, represents an important resource, both in intellectual ability and other skills, in which we must draw on for our further development. So our human resource is critical to the success of our attempts to build a better life in the region. Now, the impetus has always been to advance or to move the regional integration movement forward. Earlier we spoke about OECS and that regional body, and that we have achieved in the OECS what the greater CARICOM has not yet achieved, and that is full economic union, where you have the free movement of people without hassle and all of that. In 1989, before I go there, education is critical. So the education of our people is critical. And when I speak about education, I am not just talking in terms of formal education, which is important, but informal education. And nowadays, we are talking about a tertiary education. People being university trained and so on, but people being trained in skills as well. Technical and vocational education and training. Skilled people are needed in the Caribbean community to advance the community forward. In 1989, there was a decision to establish the CARICOM single market and economy, which was a move to deepen the integration movement and to better respond to the challenges and opportunities presented by globalization. Now, what is globalization? Global. To recognize that we just do not exist among ourselves, but we exist as part of a global community. And as part of this global community, there are challenges. There is competition, not only among ourselves, but that which comes from outside, global. And so, globalization, we see that there is increasing interconnectivity and interdependence of the world's economies, societies, and cultures. Sometimes we hear the talk about a global village, showing that although the world is so big, in reality, we are very small. It's like a village. And what makes it like a village is our interconnectedness and our interdependence. Globalization is characterized by the free flow of goods, services, ideas, and capital across national borders. Somebody in Australia can send you $1,000, and in no time, you receive it. Takes no time. You go to Western Union or any one of those money transfer businesses, remittance, and you receive it. As well as the growth of international trade, investment, and migration. And all of that is impacting on the Caribbean community. It means then that within the Caribbean community, we have to step up our game. Now, what is driving this globalization? It's being driven by technology, internet, and other forms of technology. It is being driven by transportation, and it is being driven by communication. In 4 to 5 hours, I can be in New York. I can know what is happening in London right now if something happens there. Technology, communication. Once ago, we had what you call the snail mail. Today, we have the internet. I can send a message to somebody, and they get it within seconds. So all of those things are driving globalization and making the world a more competitive place in terms of trade, migration, cultures, and all of that which we discussed earlier. So regional integration is nothing new. The Caribbean community has always been a migratory community. Ever since. And there have been attempts and attempts and attempts from the West Indies Federation in 1958, which collapsed in 1962, to the forming of the Little Eight, which is the smaller territories, and then moving into CARIFTA, the formation of the OECS, which we spoke about in 1981, and then the revised Treaty of Bastille in 2010, the full economic union among the OECS countries, and so on. And then you have coming the Caribbean single market and economy. What is the Caribbean single market and economy? It was the desire for the free movement of goods and services. 95% of goods move freely across the region. The right of establishment, what does that mean? That CARICOM-owned businesses can set up in any CARICOM member country as a right to establish their business. And that business has the right like a national business. A common external tariff, a rate of duty that is applied by all members of the single market on entry of a product from a country which is not a member of the single market. Free circulation, free movement among member states of goods imported from extra-regional sources. That is still in the development phase. The free movement of capital, a common trade policy, free movement of labor. I think that is one of the concerns that people have. The free movement of labor, the free movement of people. And there's a lot of, how must I put it, fear-mongering. People are going to come here and take over our jobs, our businesses, that we are too small. But as I mentioned earlier, free movement is already taking place. We have a lot of people here from other CARICOM member countries already living in St. Kitts and Nevis. We have people here from the OECS. They don't need a work permit. They have the right to live here, just like you and I, to the revised Treaty of Bastille. And now we're hearing about the full, free movement of people of CARICOM. That has always been the goal of CARICOM, which we have already achieved within the OECS single space. The smaller islands, that sub-regional body. And so it is only because the OECS has 11 member countries, and I mentioned to you before the associate members. CARICOM has a few other countries, the larger countries which are not a member of the OECS. We have what you call the CARICOM Skilled Certificate. Have you heard about that? Which was one of the ways in which the CSME Skills Certificate, in terms of advancing the regional integration movement. But it was a select group of people, skilled people who had to get a certificate, and when they travel to other CARICOM member countries, they don't need a work permit, and so on. But that was only a certain section of skilled persons, like nurses and teachers, I think, and artists, entertainers, domestic workers, and so on. So that already existed. With the full free movement of labor, what does that mean? It means that through measures such as removal of work permits, hassle-free travel, providing for the transfer of social security benefits, harmonizing social services such as education and health, and establishing common standards and measures for accreditation, and equivalency of qualifications and skills. However, while the CSME is expected to bring significant benefits, it is anticipated that some member states, economic sectors, and even groups of states will experience some disadvantages. And when CARICOM put this CSME together, they knew that there would be some disadvantages, primarily among the lesser developed countries within CARICOM. Because within CARICOM, we have more developed countries and we have lesser developed countries. Earlier, we spoke about some member countries having more natural resources than others. In St. Kitts and Nevis, you said that our natural resource was our soil, Lyamega, fertile soil. And so therefore, the use of that soil to produce more in terms of agriculture. We also have tourism. A lot of the countries depend on tourism. And once ago, tourism was sand, sea, and sun. And then we're trying to diversify tourism to make tourism more sustainable. And you're hearing of different forms of tourism, such as ecotourism, heritage tourism, sports tourism, entertainment tourism, health tourism, and all of that. However, tourism can be a very fragile industry. Do we see what happened with the pandemic? It brought tourism almost to a halt, if not a halt. And so we have to think of other things in which to rely on other than tourism, so that we can have a truly diversified economy. As we mentioned, we do not have bauxite, we do not have gold, we do not have diamonds, we do not have oil, like some of the other members of CARICOM do. Once ago we had sugar cane. We no longer have sugar cane. And basically, we are a service-oriented economy. So chapter 7 of the revised treaty of Chaguaramas, which established the CSME, the Granans Declaration and Work Program, that is what it was called, for the advancement of the integration movement in 1989. Granans, that's in Grenada, recognized that there would be some disadvantages with the CSME, especially among the less developed countries. And in chapter 7 of that revised treaty, it outlined how some of those challenges and disadvantages can be addressed. Can't go into all of that tonight, but it sets out measures to assist member states as well as areas within them to overcome difficulties which may arise. Okay? So, let me hear you now. Some of us have some concerns. I remember a lot of questions, and the ambassador is here, but I remember a lot of questions floating around about some people being very negative in terms of other people coming here. And that is part of the problem in the Caribbean community. We have always tried to divide it. It is we and them, or they and us. Not recognizing the diversity of the community, which we spoke about earlier. Even the Spanish people, well, we call them Spanish people, but they're really not Spanish people. Spanish people are people from Spain. They are Hispanics, they are Dominicans, they are Haitians. Even Haitians are Hispanic people, even though they speak French, because they're a part of Hispaniola. But we have to live with the reality that our world is no longer monocultural. Our world is polycultural. It is diverse, it is plural, and we have to learn to live with others of a different culture, of a different language, of a different religion. And how do we do that? Without being suspicious and being negative and thinking that people are coming to take away something from you. Of course, it's going to challenge us to be more competitive. It's going to challenge us to step up our game. It's going to challenge us to know how to improve our customer service. It's going to challenge us to get certified and qualified. But I don't think there's any need for the fear-mongering. In my estimation, we have a very small population, and there can be tremendous benefits to having a greater population. So there's the pros and the cons. Let me hear from you, Mr. James.
Join me. Let us show some appreciation for the presentation. I thought it was very informative, very insightful, stimulating, and I would hope, in fact I know, that it raised our thoughts and generated questions as well. I am going to open the floor. I have the microphone, which I will pass around. The first three persons I saw, Mr. Pearlhand, then I think it was Jasmine, was it you? No, Etta, and then White. I don't remember that. But I believe we're going to get around to many different persons. Let me, even before I do that, I want to recognize the presence of, is it Ambassador, right?
Yes.
CARICOM Ambassador?
Yes,
CARICOM Ambassador, Mr. Vaughn. Okay. I'm glad that you found it convenient to join us. Also, Mr. Warner Snideman, right? Yes, I wish that more of us had an interest, but I'm very happy for those two being with us tonight, and let's have some fruitful discussions. I'll pass the mic around. I begin with those first three. We'll have Lesroy respond, and then we pass the mic again. So you ask your question?
Okay, good evening, sir. How are you doing? Okay, just a few questions because, you know, I'm into the politics, and when I go around and talk to people, they will ask me some questions. One, the difference between CARICOM and OECS. The other thing, do you think the reason why the OECS is as successful and not as much people from the OECS flocks in here is because we have a single currency? Because that's a question. And if by the wider section or CARICOM do not have a single currency, and if we will have to adopt one like OECS to make it as successful, if that will work, and what are the negative effects, if anything? The other one, I know I have a lot, you know, but I have to make sure everyone gets a question. But these are some questions that people ask me when I go on and talk with them. The other one is this. Antigua and Barbuda, even the Bahamas mention there are certain things they're going to opt out from this free movement, because as simple as it looks, 0.5% of Haiti, which is 11 plus million people, even Jamaica, who has nearly 3 million people, if not 3 million already, and Trinidad and Tobago, who nearly has 2 million people, 0.5% could overshadow our population. So, how would that affect us, if any, and do we have any concern that we should have about exactly what you mentioned about jobs, and remember, as you mentioned, about the resources. Some countries have resources, but they're not necessarily developed. Some businesses, so to speak, might even have more money than our government, and therefore, the risk of some small businesses in our country when it comes to the free movement. Final thing is there's a comment. Coming into to get independence, I think that was where the whole drive was, to get together. But after we became independent, everybody realized now we are now established. So the bigger countries, that's where the 1 from 10 leaves 0, came in, because the smaller countries were still a part of the British Empire. So when they came out together, it was like, okay, we are all in the same boat, so it was easier for them to kind of think. I don't want to go too much involved in that, okay? And then the other thing, the final comment I'm going to finish now is just to make sure, because, you know, people ask me these questions when I go, and I just want to let them know that, you know, being inside, I will have to maybe even one day have to deal with the situation. Yes. So I want persons to understand. Yes, sir. You know, so yes, it has its advantages and disadvantages. And it may not be so much of a fear, but there might be concerns. Because, believe it or not, the currency plays a very important part of it. If our currency is 60 or 70 to 1, of course, you're going to see where the flux come in. The migration you speak about is because it was controlled. Now it's going to be open. Complete different thing. Complete different thing. Even with the OECS, we could buy houses and they could buy houses according to thing. And therefore, that is the same thing that's going to happen. Okay. So I just want to leave it there, and hopefully I'll get another chance to come in and ask something.
I hope you captured, if not all. And let's take 2 other responses before you respond, Lesroy.
Good evening to everyone again. Actually, some of the concern of Mr. Felt have, though there's some I have too, in terms of the criminals. No country want to take in criminals in the island. But so I would like to know, shouldn't there be something in place when it comes to, well, vetting those criminals? Shouldn't something to be in place for that? As I said, nobody want to take in criminals in their country. Also, what the other country? Also, in terms of the amount of, when it comes to skills, because people want skilled people in their country. That is another thing I'm concerned about too. So if you're going to take in some people, you want to take in skilled people, because skilled people is what build up our economy and build the GPD and GDP and other stuff like that. I'll come back.
My concern about, good evening everybody. My concern about these free movements, I could be a carpenter, a plumber, an electrician, and because these free movements, you might have a job, and these people who are not from St. Kitts Nevis arrive here, and they will work for 10 cents, and the job is 50 cents. So our people here, because they come in, they can drive our people away from those jobs. I believe something should be in place where you cannot pay these guys 10 cents because you want to give them the job. And they took it away from our people. Some kind of rules or regulations supposed to put in place that you cannot step below this price, otherwise you're penalized. I feel like those movements here, in my opinion, should take place. I ain't gonna say much, but thank you.
Right, okay, so let's hear from Lesroy before we continue.
Well, I think all of those are legitimate concerns. One of the very first questions that was asked is, what is the difference between the OECS and CARICOM? And as I explained earlier, is that CARICOM is the larger or the broader regional integration movement. The OECS is a sub-regional body. OECS members are also part of CARICOM. We have already achieved in the OECS the full economic union, which is the movement of goods and persons. So that has already been established with the revised Treaty of Bastille in 2010. That is already happening. I think the concern that you have larger countries that you mentioned with very large populations like Haiti, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, and Guyana. We already have some of those persons living here with us. I think your concern is that it is going to open the floodgates and that we are going to be swamped with these people. And it's going to be a challenge. I think that is the anticipation, but not necessarily what the reality would be. let's look at the OECS and the full economic union where we have the free movement of people, goods, and so on. What is the reality with that? Have we been flooded? Have we been flooded? You mentioned that we have a common currency, which is true. And because of that common currency, I think it has helped in terms of the stability of the dollar. We have an Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, and a number of OECS, well, the OECS countries, they use the same currency. It's a single currency. While as within the other members of CARICOM, it's not a single currency. They have their own dollar and so on. Although I think that one of the goals of CARICOM was that of a single currency. Will that happen? Because I think the question has to do with foreign exchange. The foreign exchange. Do you remember some time ago when we had sugarcane fields? And Kittians, because you don't have no sugar over in Nevis really, decided that they no longer wanted to cut the cane. Do you remember that? And there was talk about bringing in, I think they had bring in some mechanical cane harvesters, because our young people decided that cutting cane was too hard, it was a back-breaking work in the sun, and that it was below us. It was a kind of a job that was seen as low, menial, and so on. And so we started to import people from Guyana, St. Vincent, and where? And some of the other places to cut our cane. And they happily came to cut the cane where our locals refused to cut it. And I used to see them, because you had a community of them that lived in Molyneux over on the Mansion Estate and so on. And at the end of the week, they were very happy people. If you see them in Freights making the shopping and they're sending back money to Guyana and to St. Vincent and so on. There are certain jobs that we don't want to do. And people are coming here and picking up the slack. Do you know that a lot of Dominicans, I'm talking about Dominican Republic people, they have come here and picked up one of the slacks. They've gotten into the beauty sector. They've opened barber shops, nail salons, hair salons, and cleaning services, and so on. We vex with them. Do we support them? We support them. So one of the things in terms of the free movement is that sometimes where there is a lack of skills, sometimes you can have people bringing those skills. But we have to make an assessment in terms of what we need for our national development. There has to be an assessment. There will be competition. But competition forces us to step up our game. To improve our human resource. Let's face it, we have a lot of people of the Caribbean community who are living in the diaspora. They are contributing to the economies of those countries where they live. However, they are contributing to our economies in other ways through remittances, sometimes coming and utilizing their skills through advocacy, and so on. Do you think that people come in here to work? Because I don't believe that Little St. Kitts and Nevis will be swamped. I think we are overthinking. I believe that we are overthinking. But I do believe that it can improve our diversity. I believe that the more people we have, it can improve our economy. It can boost our production. But you raise the serious concern in terms of who comes here. You say you don't want the vagabonds and the criminals and so on, and that there must be some screening. Of course, one of the disadvantages can be an increase in social ills, because where you have more people, of course, you're going to have an increase in social ills. That is a fact. But then the question would be, is our national security apparatus up to scratch to deal with the eventuality of an improvement, of an increase in social ills? You also mentioned in terms of prioritizing work for locals, and that some people may come in and undercut the price and cut the local population out of employment. And that is a concern that you have. That by people coming here from the other countries, they might be willing to work for a lower price, and it will affect. The Haitian. Larry, you want to say anything?
Okay, So we have Woodley and Otto. Is there a third person? And Juliet. Woodley, Otto, Juliet.
Yes, good evening. I had some things that I wanted to add, but you say everything that needed to be said concerning that. But I find, as Caribbean people, sometimes as Kittians too, we, concerning the Caribbean integration movement, we are a little selfish in terms of other people coming here. You know, we have people who went to St. Thomas, St. Croix, Tortola, the States, and a lot of them is still there. And the countries are not swamped, you know, they're doing well. And St. Kitts is doing well, and some people believe because St. Kitts is doing well economically, that it will attract people to come here. But I am an integrationalist, and I believe in Caribbean integration to the fullest. And I'm longing for the day when that full movement will take place. The one thing that I want to see happen, though, is for those people in England had to be taken off our money. The Queen was on it. Now it looks like the husband going to be on it. And I think we should have our own currency. And I'm still longing for the day when all the Caribbean islands will become a republic. And we'll have the republics of the OCS. But I believe, from a historical perspective, we all black people come from Africa. We land in different islands. And some of us have different culture. We're only separated by seawater. And I believe, there's some things, though, I believe that should be put in place where, what's your name, talk about the criminals. I think there should be something in place that not only the, what you call it, SSU, not only the SSU, but even the police force can communicate with other police forces in the other OECS islands, and they can cross borders and capture criminals when it comes to the Caribbean island. In terms of interregional movement, I think we need a big improvement in that. It was only Liat, and Liat seems to be dead or half dead, and we need to get something going for the Caribbean islands, not only by air, but by sea. But I think you covered all of the areas that I was thinking about. There's a book I want to mention. If you get it before me, let me know. By Hilary Beckles, How Britain on the like what he named in Africa, did the one for Africa. Walter Rodney. But how Britain underdeveloped the Caribbean, which is a very, I'm a reader, I'm a historian, and I'm a Caribbean integrationalist. And I wish that we will not be thinking that the countries will be flooded by other people from the Caribbean. So you still have a lot of land and a lot of space to build houses. And in every country you have, even in America, you have little China, you have little Jamaica. In St. Kitts, you have little Santo Domingo. You have little Guyana. And it has not done us anything. And so, free up the Caribbean.
Thank you, thank you. Andy?
All right. Well, a few questions and maybe some suggestions. One is like, are we ready? How ready are we? Who is responsible for our readiness? All right? And go back to what you say in terms of even, you said nobody wanted to cut over cane. I don't think that people didn't want to cut cane. You know? There was a movement from cane to construction, and construction was booming. And so to me, it's a transition. I don't have any problem with integration. I feel they should have done long time, and I feel as though that it should already take from OECS point of view, and then move from there, seeing that the bigger countries. I remember in Jamaica in 91, I picked up, I think it was the Gleaner, and the topic then was Jamaica trading with St. Kitts. Who wanted to trade with St. Kitts? I didn't see anything after that. And one thing that before that I think that we should look at our education system and ensure education readiness. Now, you might say that, okay, people come in and take the jobs, but those people are certified. How certified are the persons in St. Kitts? There's a lot of tradesmen in St. Kitts, but they are not certified, all right? And we got to be a look at it, that most of our investment come from the US. If you go to Park Hyatt, for example, and you want to paint, you got to present a certificate. You got guys who paint TDC, have paint rooms. Mostly all the big build, maybe government quarters, but they can't get a job at Park Hyatt to paint a room. And that because of certificate. It simply means that we are not ready. Which school in St. Kitts are vocationally certified? There's a vocational school in St. Kitts, but it's not certified. All right? And so sometimes when I listen to the politician, oh, you could go to AVIC, you could go to this, not even AVIC certified. Right? I work at AVIC, so I can say that. Right? Not even AVIC is certified. They are working on it. All right? So where does this certification? So what I'm saying, we should have ensured that these things are in place, right? Rather than just play like a football. Okay? And I find one of the solutions should have been, we should look at the Oasis territories. And we should have an elite college of trades in every one of these territories. Maybe let's say Antigua, mechanic, St. Kitts electricity. And so you got some movement will be inside the OACS. So, we'll be ready. It'll boost our tourism and everything. All right? So these are the kind of, we don't talk about agriculture, but there's some political control on this thing. You cannot produce for 6 months from the back of your yard. And if one guy decides I want a whole cane field because I want to plant potato to export, they ain't going to get that. I look at the situation even right here in Atlas, coming by Brighton. I remember the guy, local guy from Atlas, and he had all that, watermelon, and they was exported. And then one day, boom, a bucker come inside and plop. Not even the manager say, boy, hey, I'm going to take the land. So half of that gone. The guy that bought in everything. As a matter of fact, he was bringing a steel building, and they tell him, no, he can't put on any permanent structure, right? And then he just gave up. His family took it over. And next day, with stuff inside here, a backer come up and move against the second housing project. So what he's saying, we are keeping our own people. And then sometimes we try to blame on our people don't want to do that. But as some of the policy makers is what keeping down our own people. All right? If we want to boost agriculture, man, it just come into 5 acres. It has to be more than that. We have lost the opportunity when we came out of the crop, was to actually be implemented a corporation. It ain't happening anywhere. That basically done gone. So there's a challenge in training. All right? Let me look at the same vocational thing. I left Jamaica in the 90s. Nobody gone yet. Vocational education. I did vocational education. Nobody has gone to train. And every year, oh, we're going to think about that. Even recently, I'm hearing about, oh yeah, there are about 30-something supposed to be trained into some vocational thing, but it is assessment, not the dissemination of information. And so in me, then that we take somebody from the primary school, high school, and we put them into a college to teach. In Jamaica, I don't know that. When we were in Jamaica, our math teacher was a UE graduate. But in order for him to come to the college to teach, he had to go through the vocational system to teach him maths. You understand? And so we need to take, we need to look at that. Jamaica, the corporate, 3% of the corporate tax will go into the vocational education section, right? We don't do that in St. Kitts. So teachers, sometimes push their hand in the pocket in order to train persons. It's not easy. So we should ensure that we build a foundation. So by the time this thing hits us, we hear about this thing for a very long time. By this thing hit us, then at least we got a better foundation. Recently now we have the president of Cantor is from St. Kitts. I don't know what's going to become of that, basically. All right? The certificates, basically hard certificates, the carbon vocational certificate that backed by CXC. But then who are doing it? All right? And so there are certain skills, as you said, that the DJs and that kind of stuff. But what about our hard carpenters, our mason, our painters? And what I'm saying, there are modules for all of these. One thing that we lack, teachers, all right, of these particular subjects. And what we're saying, rather than we're going to send somebody, let's say 10 persons in Jamaica to learn, why we don't take some person for training the trainees program, basically, and so these people can come and teach our own people? You know, when I went in Jamaica, I say, yeah, but a lot of things I'm doing here, but this could happen in St. Kitts. Even doing in psychology, I say, boy, again, a lot in the room shop. It's just the more organized in the classroom. And so we got talent here. We have talent. But we need to harness the talent, and we need to find some way of certifying people. It could be a prior learning assessment. There are some guys that are very good. You know, they don't go back in the classroom, but you can meet them where they are, right? And find an assessment tool to certify these people. Otherwise, we're going to leave behind. I mean, there's a lot. I just say what, and you see, we just say we got a system, but the system can only good integrity. The system can only go to the people operate the systems, right? And then, I mean, sometimes you hear, you may go into an institution and they give you all kind of trouble. Maybe the person know you, they have some kind of beef with you, but then a foreign person walking in, they get all the attention that they need, all right? And so there must be a different mind transition set. There must be something that for post. Because you got anything, we talk about we can't export Israel, all right? So we must have something that we can base on, all right? I mean, I tell people if places like Cuba and so up into the Caribbean and if it's for tourism, then you must come now and think, and so what you to see? Bimson Hill and whatever case maybe, you got to go kind of monumental thing, you got beach, white sand beaches for miles. So all this talking about sea, sun, and what case maybe, everybody got that. You understand? So we need to look at a lot of things. I mean, sometimes we don't have the audience where you all have. So sometimes we don't really be talking to the right set of person. We don't really be informed because we're not invited. But there's so many things that I could really speak about. But we first need to check on our education system. All right? We need to do talent search. We need to take things in the primary school. Don't wait until you finish school or finish high school. If a guy ain't doing something in school, it's very hard to pick it up after school because it's not part of the system. The muscle memory is not there. So we got to find Jamaica, Trinidad, and those persons. They have a difference between the technical school, the high school, the secondary school, you know, that kind of thing. And they are basically, they have links with Germany and these other places. So they're going to send the person to Germany. They're going to send the person to different places to train, to come back and teach our people, let's say, Sinkies, Nevis, Anguilla, case me. Why we can't send our people to Germany and come back and train our own people? All right? I don't want to take up much a lot of time, but we really need to fix that.
Yeah, thanks. Juliet?
Thank you.
A pleasant Sunday evening to one and all. Mr. Williams, foods for thoughts. Andy would have touched a few of the things that I wanted to speak about, really. You spoke about tourism. And, you know, we have education tourism because when we go to the banks and get the big loans to build the apartments, you know, you have people from like Ross universities and stuff like that because we can't afford to rent those apartments. So we depend heavily on those students. Is it because of the Hispanics why we are now implementing Spanish in the primary schools? And talking about the youth, I was wondering, is the youth skills still up and running? Not certain, because, you know, there is where you'll get some skills for the young people. And the pharmacy, when I look around at the government pharmacies, you hardly see any locals. They're all people from overseas, so no one's interested in that, I don't know, in that field. And my final question is, so if you're from St. Lucia and you come to St. Kitts, still the free movement, you have worked some years and you would have put in your social security there. But when you come here and you work, would that add to your, you know? Thank you.
Yes, over to you, Lesroy.
Yeah, I want to thank Andy. He mentioned some very, very good points in terms of certification. I think that has always been one of the questions, that our people are certified so that they can travel and their certification is accepted in other CARICOM member states. I know there has been a lot of talk about the civic cues, which he has mentioned, Caribbean vocational qualification and so on. So he mentioned a very good point in terms of the establishing of common standards and measures for accreditation and equivalency of qualification and skills, so that when people move, they will not have problems in terms of their certification being accepted. But the other point is that our people, he mentioned, need to be certified. Because we may have people, carpenters and masons and other persons who do not have that certification, that piece of paper. And it poses a problem when they have to go to other islands or countries to work. So the certification is definitely important. Another thing that I'm hearing is that is why I mentioned in terms of national development and an assessment, what are some of the skills that we need here? What are some of the areas? Somebody mentioned that when they go to our pharmacies, all they are seeing other persons from other islands. Could very well be that that is an area in which our people do not go off for training. Our people do not go off for training. And so therefore, these are some of the things that the free movement can help with in terms of filling gaps where there are gaps in terms of certain skills and so on. And that is why I said that our people would have to become more, there will be more competition, because within the Caribbean community, we have a lot of gifted people, educated people, talented people. Just before you, and it's not about just them coming here. We can go too. We are free to move as well, but we are just thinking in terms of them coming and swamping us. But we can go too. We can move too. But in order for us to move, we have to have the necessary preparation, the skills, the certificates, and so on. But the problem is we think that we are very comfortable here and they are coming to upset our comfort zone. They are coming to upset our comfort zone because, look here, I don't want to go to Jamaica to work, you know. Why would I leave St. Kitts and go to Jamaica? Or why would I leave St. Kitts and go to Haiti? Who wants to go to Haiti? Especially what is happening in Haiti. So we are afraid that all the Haitians will come and flood us here. You know, some of them have tried to come on the boats and so on, and illegally and so on, and come in at the, you know, and so on. And we know the attitude of our people and so on. They think that the Haitians are going to come in droves because, of course, they want to escape the poverty. They want to escape the political unrest. They want to escape the gang violence and all of that is happening in Haiti. And so therefore, you will have boatloads of them coming here that are going to impact upon our social services. Our social services, hey, thank God for his blessing. They are going to come and our social services will be impacted. Do we have enough money? Because they're going to impact our social services. They're going to impact upon our education. They're going to impact upon health. They're going to impact upon the church. There will be a lot of impact. You know, in St. Kitts we have what you call it, free school books. and free meals, free exams, and all of that. So more money will have to be spent in social services, which can impact our economy. Maybe these are some of the concerns that we have as well.
Okay, I'm just going to entertain the last round of questions. I'm not even going to touch on my concerns because to me it's really a very interesting topic. Like we're just starting it. But I know people have to work and so on, so I'm mindful of that. I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. So I think if we exhaust the topic, we'll go up to 10 o'clock and stuff like that. But it's just a round one, a stimulation, where maybe you could continue your discussions with other persons, and maybe you could even come back at some point. So I'm going to have maybe the last three questions.
Yeah, Mr. James, Andy asked some questions that I think are appropriate from the government's perspective. I would like to invite His Excellency, the Ambassador. He asked in terms of, are we ready? Are we prepared? These are questions I can't answer.
Your Excellency, can we get a feedback from you?
He said, go ahead with the last round and then he will.
Okay.
I mentioned earlier about the Bahamas and the Antigua-Barbuda approach, and I then asked if Saints and Nevis should consider taking such approach to the whole CSME. I don't know if everybody know what the Bahamas and the Antigua-Barbuda approach is, which is that they are not going to accept or sign on to the free movement, at least at this time. So I want to know if Saints and Nevis should approach something like that, based on some of the concern Mr. Atto spoke about, and a lot of personals have mentioned. So that's what I think they wanted to get started of them.
Okay.
Fine. Last year, one of the three, did I have two other hands? You again?
Good evening. My question is, right, Mr. William, how long, like you said, late was in the 70s, right? Late. 74, right? And you say CARICOM is doing a good job, you say? I mean, to me, right? Later on since 1974, right? And late was dead, right?
You know, there is a revival of late, you know. Have you been following the news?
No.
Antigua and Barbuda, they have purchased some...
No, them not do it for Antiguans.
Yeah.
I'm talking about CARICOM. CARICOM can get together and get an airline organized. How long CARICOM around?
Yeah, I think that there has been some discussion among...
No, I mean, I have to ask you how long they're around, CARICOM around. How long they're around?
73.
73.
Since the 4th of July, 1973.
CARICOM around.
Mm-hmm.
So, in other words, all this is CARICOM can put their head together and come up with a good airline and forget about late. Eh? Because, and to me, with Antigua, right, it's late is them one, you know. Because if you check out Antigua operate late, when you want to see late, go up Antigua and the airport to see them. And they want everybody put money in late to support Antigua thing. No. I got when Timothy, I mean the Prime Minister Timothy said, no, he not support late. I got to say that there. Because late is to Antigua. And it's full time now. CARICOM now. Come put their head together and come put a good airline. Put their head together and come put a good airline. Because all these years, they are trying with you say, free movement, how you where you move from? Where you move back on the water? We need to come up with an airline for a CARICOM airline. Next thing again, Haiti a part of CARICOM. Anybody in their right mind could say CARICOM is doing something good to help Haiti people then? To me, they just push them aside. Since they're part of us, try to bring up some CARICOM can put it together again and come up with something good to help people in Haiti, since they're part of us. I mean, where we alone? Where we alone? Where we alone? Say, all is a Haitian problem. And like, to me, they just keep abandoning them. They go to something better than that. How they treating Haiti people them. So, Mr. Williams, you're doing a good job tonight. Congratulations, but CARICOM and the airline we're looking after in CARICOM. Amen.
Thank you for your input.
Let's go to Snideman, please.
Good evening. Mr. Otto, I must correct you with regards to Brimstone Hill. It is not as insignificant as you think. Brimstone Hill is the largest military fortification of its kind in the entire Caribbean, almost one of the largest in the Western Hemisphere. There's nothing in Puerto Rico, Cuba, Haiti of the size of Brimstone Hill, which was built by our enslaved foreparents. And with regards to Brimstone Hill, however, it highlights one of the issues that Mr. Otto spoke of earlier, namely the availability of certain skills. Brimstone Hill is a World Heritage Site as determined by UNESCO. This year, we celebrate the 25th anniversary of Brimstone Hill becoming a World Heritage Site. But one of the conditions of maintaining such a designation is that one must not make changes to what is there. And so you would find that just a few years ago, a large wall fell at Brimstone Hill, but it had to be restored as if it was built in 1820 when it was originally done. They could not find stonemasons skilled to work in lime. They can find stonemasons skilled to work in cement, or modern cement, but the original lime could not be found. At the moment, the old Treasury building, the National Museum, you'll notice that there are some, there's construction material around it. It is being refurbished, but yet again, stonemasons capable of working in lime could not be found. And the restoration of that building will be in the form of removing every millimeter of original lime that has been failing over the years, the repairs that were done in more recent times with cement, and replacing it. So you're effectively rebuilding the building without taking it down. And there are no stonemasons here capable of working in lime to that extent. And so like Brimstone Hill, they'll be using a company out of Trinidad who specialize in this kind of restoration work. And so therefore, it does highlight that ease of movement, when these people come here, one of the conditions that the museum, the National Trust, has placed on the contractor is that they must employ locals in an apprenticeship form so that they can learn those skills, that when they've left, further maintenance will be done by our local people. That is one of the things that Brimstone Hill did when they did that restoration work themselves. Another item is the subject, the fear of people moving. In 1833, when official enslavement ended, according to Sir Probin Innes, the population 50 years later in 1883, when another census was done, was exactly the population of St. Kitts in 1983, 100 years after independence. There were no major epidemics, there were no major catastrophes, but Kittitians over the years have traveled elsewhere for improvement. When Kittitians leave St. Kitts, We are not going to other Caribbean islands. We are going to North America. We are going to Europe. We are looking for better. Why should we go elsewhere to look for better, and other people in the region shouldn't come here to look for better when we are the ones who have the better here? We are being selfish, I think. And finally, one of the major challenges towards the issue of this subject is the role that the politicians play. When politicians are in office, they promote half-heartedly the idea of regional integration because they are listening to their supporters who say, no, we don't want them coming here, we don't want them flooding us. And when they are in opposition, they say nothing to speak up in favor of integration. So they are at best 1/3 supporters of the idea. In opposition, they say nothing, and when in office, they speak and say, but I will listen to you. They do not come out and speak forcefully and promote the idea. They make it sound as if they're leading from the middle or leading from the back. Until our politicians have the courage, and I'm speaking of politicians of all flavors, colors, shapes, and sizes, until our politicians have the courage to lead and rather want to be part of the flock, we will constantly have people saying, we don't want others coming here. But what? We want to go elsewhere. Thank you.
Yeah, political expediency.
Thank you. Was there a final one?
Larry.
No.
Oh, there was another.
From the floor. Okay, so we'll give Woodley. Oh, okay, fine. So you and then we'll invite Ambassador Vaughn.
Right. All of those were very good points. Haiti, of course, you know the history of Haiti. And Haiti's problem has been a problematic history. If you know the history, Haiti was once a very thriving economy in the Caribbean. It had large plantations, and it was rich, relatively speaking. It has the largest slave revolt in the Caribbean, which led to other islands because of the conditions and so on. You heard about the Haitian Revolution. You heard about Toussaint Louverture, who went to France and all of that, and Haiti basically demanded their independence. And because they demanded their independence, I think Toussaint, he wrote the Constitution and so on. He was a very intelligent slave. And France punished Haiti. Haiti had to pay. Yes. They finished paying, but they had to pay this debt to France. And that is part of the problem why Haiti is where it is, but part of it has also had to do with the leadership of Haiti and some of the dictators, Duvalier and Papa Doc and Baby Doc and so on, who also raped the country. You know, that is part of it. So the political turmoil has been an ongoing one for many years and to this day. Haiti is very unstable, but CARICOM has been trying to assist Haiti. And so we cannot say that they have not been trying. You feel that they are not trying enough? Well, that is an opinion. But I know recently and so on, with the unrest there and so on, they have been meeting and trying. But part of the problem is that Haiti has been so hurt that it is very suspicious sometimes of people coming and trying to help them. They view them with a lot of suspicion. Are they coming to abuse us? I don't know. His Excellency. Yes, Larry will touch that.
Thank you very much. I want to first apologize. I try not to be late for anything, but I spent the day in Nevis, and I rushed over to be here, and transportation woes. It's not only late. It's not only late. It's not only late. I want to thank this congregation for putting on this lecture. I want to congratulate you on behalf of the Regional Integration and Diaspora Unit, which I head in the Prime Minister's office. And when I read this on social media, some people think I don't live in Keys, that I live on Facebook. And so by seeing that you were having this event, I was intent on being here because a discussion like this, coming from the congregation of a church, tells me that you believe in feeding the spiritual and the physical soul. And so I want always, in my role as head of the Regional Integration and Diaspora Unit, to be a part of that. I look at matters for the OECS, I look at matters for the ACS, which we hardly hear about in this region, but it still exists. It's the Association of Caribbean States. It is broader than CARICOM. We look at areas like Guatemala, Colombia, Honduras. They are all washed by the Caribbean Sea. And they are on Central America down to some portions of South America. And we have an integration process with them as well. And in the month of May, there should be a meeting of the heads, and some more information will be made known to the country. When I look at the free movement, there are two texts that come to mind, because I'm in church, so I have to talk from the Bible. And there's a text in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 11. And Paul said to the church in Corinth that when you look back and you see what the people wrote, maybe in the Bible and different historical texts, read them and understand them because they are for your instruction. Because these people may have made mistakes in the past, and it is not for you to try to make the same mistakes. What am I talking about? In 1962, there were certain countries that felt that they had arrived. They had large populations, they had resources that others don't have, and they felt that others will want to flock to their countries. And now the tables have reversed, and it is 2024, and we are living in countries that have very good GDP. And we feel that if we are to enter into the same arrangement, no, they're going to want to flock us. Not realizing that life is about ebbs and flows. Today for me, tomorrow for you. And the question is, if we are to develop as a region and as a people, how do we do so together except we learn from the mistakes that we have made as a region? Secondly, while we call it free movement, I love to call it a community. And I know all of us inside here, every one of us, have WhatsApp on our phones, every one of us. And WhatsApp has been so great to us lately that WhatsApp has now developed on our phones what they call communities. Have you seen it on your phone? Yes. And what is a community? A community in WhatsApp is the same as the CARICOM, where groups are now brought together into one supergroup. And here's what's happening. In the 1990s, did you hear about the Asian countries? Indonesia, Malaysia, and those countries out there, they were having what we are having now. They were seeking to group together to become stronger. And in the 90s, Bill Clinton got together with, I think it's Jean Chrétien and Mulroney in Canada, and I forget who was in Mexico at the time, and they formed NAFTA. Because they understood that integration made countries stronger. And here you are looking at a community that at its biggest is 11 million people, which is a city in some places. And we are saying that we feel like we are going to be swamped by what is considered in the global picture a city. China has 1-point-something billion people. India now has more people than China. And when we look at all of that together, and we are a small unit in the whole global picture, we are now concerned that somebody who was dropped off on the boat from Africa on a different island in the same region we're living, that they're going to swamp us. And so we have some fears. And this is where the second text comes in now. And it is John 14 and verse 27. The very last aspect of that verse, because the verse has two halves, it says, "Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid." Because we have some work to do as a region. And I've listened to all the concerns. And if I can rattle quickly some of these concerns, I'll start with the fifth person, because I did them by numbers, not by names. And the fifth person is where I want to start. He says, are we ready? How ready are we? And who is responsible for readiness? So I want to start there. St. Kitts and Nevis is not ready. It is coming from somebody who sits with the Prime Minister of this country who tells you St. Kitts and Nevis is not ready. However, we need to get ready. We need to ready ourselves. And that is why I'm glad for this meeting this evening. Because we have to begin to discuss. And we have begun discussing. I have personally met with the leadership of 15 organizations in St. Kitts and Nevis, including your Evangelical Association, and the Christian Association, and the Christian Council, and the Chamber, and the Bar Association, and I've got them written down here, the Bar Association, the Bankers Association, the PACE. I've come across a group called PACE recently, never knew of them before, which they are performing arts people. I also would have met with the Rastafarians, because they too are part of this. The Hotel and Tourism Association, the Media Association, the Youth Parliamentary Association, the Teachers Union, the Nevis Teachers Union. We've invited the St. Kitts Teachers Union. We haven't seen them yet. We want to meet with them as well. So if anybody here knows the leadership of the St. Kitts Teachers Association, please let them know we want to have a conversation with them. And also the Trades and Labor Union, among others. So, if we are not ready, how are we going to get ready? We are planning to get ready by first knowing what are the terms of the regional integration. Mr. Andy, Otto, and Officer, I know you guys played sport. I don't know if anybody else in here was sport persons, but I know you can't get on the field to play and you don't know the rules. And so one of the first things the Honorable Prime Minister and I did when we got to Guyana in February of this year was to seek to get to know what are the terms. And what the terms were would have been set by a group called the Intergovernmental Task Force of CARICOM. And they're setting the rules to say that, number one, entering free movement is not going to be immediate or compulsory. What is being said that at the date they choose to begin, the date originally should have been the 31st of March, we've missed that deadline. Let not your heart be troubled. So don't think that the 31st of March came and we're in it and nobody told you. We are not in it as yet. However, whenever that date comes, some countries are going to be part of it. Some countries are not going to be. More than likely, St. Kitts and Nevis will not be a part of it when it begins. What the IGTF has said is that, number one, every country will be given up to 3 years to enter the free movement after that date. So let's say, I'm picking a date out of the sky, so nobody quote me. Let's say it's the 1st of February. And on that 1st of February, 3 years after, on the 1st of February, 3 years later, each country is expected, who did not come on originally, would be on it. So the countries have 3 years to get themselves ready. So at this point, the clock hasn't started yet on the 3 years. That's number one. Number two, the IGTF has said that every member state will have up to 7 years to put the systems in place. So for example, we were talking about lands just a while ago. Somebody was talking about lands. Let's say that you want to put systems in place about lands. Let's say that you recognize, boy, a lot of people are going to come to St. Kitts. And you want more housing in St. Kitts and Nevis. So you might have to put the systems in place now that your building code will change, and rather than you build your houses on lots going that way, we might have to change and go that way. That's just a possibility. So you have 7 years to put all those systems in place. It might be education. We were talking about the CVQs. One of the things we recognize why we think we're not ready is that our people have not yet begun to be certified with the CVQs. So it means that our people will not be competitive in the labor market, whether across the region or home here in St. Kitts and Nevis. So we need to put the systems in place. Because at the end of the day, our people should not be behind, whether at home here in St. Kitts or Nevis or across the region. Now, there's a misconception I want to clear up as well. There is CARICOM, and there's the CSME, which is the CARICOM Single Market and Economy. Not all members of CARICOM are members of the Single Market and Economy. There are 15 full members of CARICOM, but there are 13 members of the CSME. The two countries that are not part of the CSME are the Bahamas and Haiti. The free movement is only for CSME countries, not all CARICOM countries. So that free movement, Haiti and Bahamas will not be part of the free movement. I call them the party of two. One is the unwilling and one is the unable. Bahamas is not willing at this point, or has not ever been willing, because since we signed the CSME agreement under the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, Bahamas has never signed. So they are not part of the free movement. They don't come on skill certificates, nothing like that for Bahamas. Haiti, we know its internal struggles, and we are working with Haiti. Just this week, my brother, in Haiti, there has been a new council being put in place to transition. Prime Minister Ariel Henry has resigned, and they're seeking to bring about more reconciliation and peace. CARICOM had put together, they call that the eminent group. I call them the three wise men. They were the former prime ministers of Jamaica, the former Prime Minister of St. Lucia, and the former Prime Minister of the Bahamas. If I remember their names, that would be Kenny Anthony, St. Lucia, Bruce Golden, Jamaica, and Perry Christie of the Bahamas. And so we've been working with them. And the unfortunate thing is that even if we don't bring lasting solutions, it doesn't mean that we are not trying. And trust me, my good friend Williams, he understated the impact of what is happening in Haiti. And it is not something we'll ever want to face in any of our member states. And we cannot stop trying because we have not yet found the success. And so our leaders continue to work with Haiti, and we will continue to work with them. But back to the matter at hand. So responsibility for our readiness now falls with each one of us. It doesn't fall to the government, because government, well, let me change my word. It doesn't fall to an administration, because administrations change. Governments do not change. It will always be the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, no matter who forms the administration. And that is why I am happy to say, when asking the question about the leaders and the governments, there is an intention within the next month to meet with all the leaders of the political parties here in St. Kitts and Nevis to have consultations and discussions on the free movement. Because when you are in opposition, and this is Larry speaking now, this is not Ambassador Vaughan, this is Larry speaking now. When you are in opposition, you are government in exile. And no one knows which day the people will ask you to come out of exile. And so it is necessary for posterity planning and to make sure that that essential matters pass from one administration to the next with clear understanding. There must be consultation, there must be discussion across the political divide, so that wherever this matter falls, at time of implementation, the administration can carry it knowing what is happening. And so you will hear also of consultations with the political parties. Look forward for it. Who is responsible? Everybody's responsible. Vocational certification of the schools and of individuals. I'm happy that you're talking about that. And yes, youth skills still exists. However, the government is at this point having consultations and work being done to merge youth skills, AVEC, and Project Strong into one. Is it done already? Right. So the desire is to merge all three and to have what should be called, they may have another name, but the name I've heard is the National Training Institute. And that institute is expected to bring about the certification of vocational individuals. Now, I'm happy for what Mr. Otto said, that even the center itself needs to be certified. You can't certify people when you yourself are not accredited. And so we have to bring about that stronger accreditation for that body. LEAT 1975. LEAT 1974 Limited. I want to disavow anyone that LEAT started in 1974. It was actually started on October the 20th, 1956. And the 1956 version of LEAT experienced a lot of trouble. And so by 1974, it had to be born again. And any church knows that born again is a good thing. Yes. And LEAT has gone through a lot of trouble. And one of the things we've recognized is that the airline industry is very fickle. And what has been saving LEAT over all these years has been the kind assistance of our member states. Governments have often been subsidizing LIAT and been taking care of LIAT. And so now LIAT is going through another transformation change. You know, God is never finished with us. So let's not be finished with LIAT either. And so it is coming back in its new version of LIAT 2020 Limited. God is not finished with you. Don't be finished with Antigua either. Pray for them. Pray for them. Pray for them. And so, yes, there have been considerations. One of the discussions at the table, we were working very closely with the Caribbean Development Bank when it comes to other regional carriers, because we believe that you do not want a situation again where LIAT, once it re-emerges, becomes the only player in town. You want more players in town. And so there have been discussions with Air Bahamas, because Bahamas has a national carrier as well, to see if it can begin to move through the islands as well. Then we want to do code sharing between airlines like SVG Air and Cape Air and others, where they can have now a cooperative arrangement between those smaller aircraft so that you have more flights in the region. You want to be able to, I remember there was a time when I was working in the private sector and I would have a meeting in Trinidad and I would get up at 4 in the morning, get on Caribbean Star, and I get to Trinidad before 7 in the morning. I go to my meeting, and by 5 in the afternoon, I'm on a flight, and I'm back to St. Kitts. And that used to be regular. Now I have to overnight in Miami to get anywhere in the region. And so we need to have that up and going again. So do not exclude LIAT, but there is work being done on other regional carriers. Criminals. No, they can't call it LIAT. It's still late in arrival and takeoff. So let's see what happens there. But let's talk about the aspect of criminals. 2 persons asked similar questions, and one was criminals. We have to be careful that no country wants to take in criminals. Is there anything in place to guard against criminals? I remember that as a question from the second person. And then there was someone else who spoke to it to say, yes, cross-border police intervention, that police need to work together across borders. Someone else said that. Now, I don't know if any one of us has ever heard of CARICOM impacts. Have we heard of CARICOM impacts? Okay, CARICOM impacts is a CARICOM organization that brings all the national security ministries of the region together. At one point, St. Kitts and Nevis was even the chair. I think we have become the chair once again quite recently under Prime Minister Drew as the Minister of National Security. And CARICOM Impacts has an office in Barbados called the JRCC, the Joint Regional Communication Center. And what that center does, it has national security employees from every CARICOM state working there. So even St. Kitts and Nevis has customs officers and immigration officers working in that center in Barbados. Hold on. And what we do in that center, we feed each country with information about every passenger who is traveling to your country on a daily basis. What has been happening is that it gives you the information 1 day before, and it gives you the information 1 hour before the flight takes off. What has been happening now? On account, we know that in the next few weeks or in the next few days, we'll be having ICC cricket across the region. 2020 cricket. You know, it's happening across the region. And so what JRCC has been updated to do now is to provide you this information not just a day before, but we're now starting 3 days before. And it gives you background information, and if you want additional information, you can request to know who's coming, if they're wanted any place, that kind of a thing. You get it 3 days before, 2 days before, a day before, and an hour before the flight takes off. Secondly, we are also working feverishly on an extradition treaty between the member states, because we do not want free movement to become a reason and an opportunity to hide. And so, extradition treaties will be allowed for each member state that if Trinidad wants a fella up in Keys named Larry Vaughan, because he might have done something against their laws, he must not run to maybe St. Lucia to hide. Because if he's found to be in St. Lucia, because JRCC has now shown that he left St. Kitts on this date and he's now in St. Lucia, that Trinidad now has the opportunity to go to Castries to seek his extradition and to have him tried. This is also a part of the whole thing. We are looking at what would be the possible situations and bring about solutions. I will not be able to answer everything, but there's another matter I heard here, the Bahamas and Antigua-Barbuda approach. That is where I want to end. I deliberately left that for last. Every country will have to make its decision based on the local realities. Bahamas will not be a part of it, whether they say they want to be a part of it or not, because they're not part of the CSME. But Antigua and Barbuda has a special situation that one can understand. And here's how I understand it. Free movement has not come into effect as yet in Antigua and Barbuda. But when they do a population census in Antigua and Barbuda, they have found that right now, 40% of their population are non-nationals. So they are already in a tenuous situation. So Antigua and Barbuda must now strategize what its response will be. But every tub has to sit on its own bottom. And so the St. Kitts Nevis approach cannot be the Antigua approach, because Antigua is facing the situation based on its own realities. What are the realities of St. Kitts and Nevis? Let's discuss them. We have a situation in St. Kitts and Nevis where already we are saying that we have 0 of our population having CVQs. When you look at the percentage, you find that Jamaica is leading, Trinidad has a significant, Antigua and Barbuda has nobody certified as yet from what we are seeing, neither is Dominica. So the question is, how do we make sure we can ready our workers for this situation? Second situation we find ourselves in. If we have now a population of 50,000 people and we think we need to grow our population, we now need to have the understanding, what would be a targeted amount that we must plan for? Let's say we want to double it to 100,000. Let's say. Don't quote me, just let's say. The question then is, do we have the water resource for 100,000 people? Do we have the electricity resource for 100,000 people? Do we have the internet availability so that 100,000 people can have reliable communication? It means to be ready, we will have to put the systems in place to bring us up to the state where we have water 24 hours a day with 100,000 people. And so these are the situations the government must now sit down and respond to. So how we are going about it in two simple ways. One, the government is going to establish a regional integration task force. And I remembered as a child, I heard Dr. Joseph Halliday tell a teacher, the reward for good work is more work. So it appears the Prime Minister has thrown that on my shoulder. I don't know what good work I would have done in the past, but this is more work. And what is to be happening from this is that we want to have the Regional Integration Task Force based on two committees. One, we want to have what is called the BLAC, the Black. It is the Business and Labor Advisory Committee. And it will be made up of the chamber, the business community, the civil society, labor organizations. And we have met with them. That is the group of persons I called out there. And on the 2nd of May, we are going to bring them together and we're going to formalize that committee. And what we're going to do, we're going to set a schedule and we're going to go to the membership of these organizations. Because we want to know from across the board, what are the concerns? Because the only way you can address and properly implement is to know what are the issues out there. So you see all these issues we've read, I wrote them down. Because these have to form part of what we're doing. And then the second group we're going to have will be an inter-ministry consultative committee. And this will be made up of the permanent secretaries in the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. And what they're going to do, they're going to take the concerns coming out of the BLAC, and they're going to strategize how each of the ministries, how every aspect of the government is going to be prepared for the implementation. Whether it is in the 3 years or the systems in the 7 years as the CARICOM Intergovernmental Task Force would have recommended. Because our desire is to make sure that when St. Kitts and Nevis enters into this formally, we are ready. And readiness also comes, secondly now, with conversations with the people. And that's why I was happy to hear that you were having a conversation. And I actually came to warm the backbench and to listen. And I was coerced to come to the front. And so now I have spoken up. I must now shut up and I will sit down. Thank you very much.
Well, I wouldn't say much. I think we've had an incredible night, right? I've asked Sister Erla to say thanks, so I'm going to ask her to come forward. But yes, Larry, as the night evolved, we began by preparing one presentation for one presenter. But we are very versatile, we are very resourceful, and we had two wonderful presentations, okay? It really stimulating. For me, I could go on for another 2 hours, but I know restrictions and so on. So I'm going to have Sister Allen come forward. Sister Allen, the first, okay, you have one set of gifts, but you know we're resourceful. We have Larry's gifts over there. So those are for him, and you have these others. So you will take whatever order you so desire.
What a night. What a night. What a night. I have to say that when I came here, I have to speak up, Mr. Williams. I was very skeptical. I was very skeptical in wondering if just one person would be able to talk about the free movement. And it is instructive that we at Mount Carmel, as Mr. James said earlier, that we thought it was important that our congregation, our people, yes, we are involved in the things of God, but it is important that we know what is happening around us. And I dare say that tonight was a history lesson. It was a history lesson. I sat there and I was mesmerized. I was mesmerized at the information that came from Mr. Williams. And it put me back to the school days and all the things that I would have forgotten in the school days, in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis and where we were and the agreements that we entered into. And I think that all of us would have left here enlightened. And so, Mr. Williams, there are a few things that you said that stuck with me. One was that competition forces us to step up our game. That is so important. And I think Larry came on the back end and he also said that we must get our people ready. And I think it was Andy who spoke about that, our readiness. And Mr. Williams also spoke about the improvement of diversity when it comes to free movement and the fact that it would boost our production. It is said that the beginning of knowledge is the discovery of something that we do not understand. That's the beginning of knowledge. The discovery of something that we do not understand. And we heard all the noise about the free movement, what it would do for us. And I want to thank those of us who really engaged the speaker tonight. I thought it was good discussion, good food for thought, good back and forth. I thought it was really good. And so, Mr. Williams, I really want to thank you for everything. I thank you for your presence. I thank you for the opportunity to just listen to the thoughts and the insights of people. It was important that we had this discussion here today. And so, sir, on behalf of Mount Carmel Baptist, the deacon, and the members of Mount Carmel Baptist, we just wish to present you this small token. And when we do things, we do it bigly, right? But I just want to thank you for your presence here and thank you for your interaction with us and your knowledge that you imparted. Thank you. Thank you. And so Larry came on the back end, and Mr. James said that we had two presenters. Larry was the one that gave us a lot more clarity from the government side of things. And some of the issues, some of the things that we were concerned about, I think he spoke to that. And as usual, in his eloquent way, his mannerism, his voice, you know, I think he really brought it home to us. And so, children of God, as he started with the scripture, we need not fear. God is in control. And we are looking forward, Larry, for, you spoke about having to, the groups that you are meeting with, but I think it was Otto again who said that there are conversations that are happening with the common man that the government side need to hear. And I think this was the beginning of something beautiful, and I think we need to have several more conversations like this. And so, Larry, you have your concerns, the concerns that were written, the concerns from the people, And I trust that you would take it back and that you would build upon it and that we will hear more about this free movement. So Larry, as usual, we do things bigly. Please step forward. Larry, on behalf of Mount Carmel, we just want to thank you. Thank you for everything and thank you for the clarity that you lent here tonight. Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Sister Allen, for a job well done. And I shall not detain us any longer. I think we're leaving on a high. Shall we stand for closure, please? With me together, and may the grace of our Lord, the love of God, may it rest and abide with us. Amen. Would you greet your neighbor as we make our way? Thank you.